Okay, so we're ready to do our electronics hookup here. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is, if you have a brand new ESC, a lot of times you'll need to calibrate it. So I've went ahead and hooked up the 3 wires to my motor, and I also hooked up the receiver. Now depending on what radio system you're using, it could vary where you need to plug it in, but for this one it's channel 3. So I plugged it in. And normally with your receivers, you want to have all the wires pointed in a certain direction. I think the different receivers may differ on exactly how you have to have your wires oriented when you plug them in, but make sure that when you do plug everything in that it's all facing the same direction. With this type, usually with this being up, usually you want the little contacts, the little metal contacts here, to be pointing upwards when you plug them in. So now I'll go ahead and I have my radio on. You always want to have your radio on. I'm going to go ahead and slide all this stuff through the body. Okay. I just want to make sure that nothing was dangling in the way of the propeller. So, to do your... Sorry, I had to do a little... adjusting the kids real quick. So anyway, so I got everything moved here so I don't chop up the wires, and then I'm going to go ahead and plug in my battery. Again, make sure your radio is on and the throttle is all the way down. And then to calibrate your ESC, I'm actually going to put, and you normally don't want to do this with the propeller on, but so I'm not going to do it right now, but what you would do is you would plug in everything with your throttle at the all the way up position. You'll hear a series of beeps, and then after that stops, you move this back down, and then that should calibrate your speed controller. Now the procedure may vary from controller to controller, but that's basically how it works. So since I have the propeller on and I'm all about safety, I'm not going to do that right now, but I will go ahead and do this for another reason, and that is to check the spinning of the propeller to make sure it spins the right direction. So my throttle is back down on my radio. It is on. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. Okay. So now I'm going to just give it, I'm going to make sure my wire's out of the way. I'm going to just give it a quick little run up. Okay. And that tells me that the wire is actually plugged in the right way. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug my battery. So if it was spinning the wrong direction, and I could tell because the air was coming out this way, which it's supposed to. If it was spinning the wrong direction, if you unplug any 2 of these 3 wires and switch them, you're going to get it to spin the opposite direction. So that's a quick way to change the direction of the motor spin. The other thing I wanted to mention, I'm going to turn my radio off. The other thing I wanted to mention is that now that we're going to be laying everything out in here, you want to get an idea of what the balance is going to be like and where you may have to put everything. So what I did already, but just to kind of describe it, is my center of gravity needs to be basically right here at the front of this notch. So I went ahead and put everything kind of in position. And then I turned the plane over. Okay, so right here at the front of this notch, you can kind of see just a little bit of a line right there. That's where the center of gravity should be. So I got my battery that I'm planning on using, and I kind of just put it somewhere on the plane, and then I lift from that point to get an idea of what my balance is going to be like. And what you want is a nice, level plane when you lift it up. So even with the and this is going to be, moving this is going to be the biggest effect on center of gravity. The electronics affected somewhat, but the reason I wanted to do this is I wanted to see if the plane was going to be very tail heavy, for example, and I was going to have to sit here and slide this way forward, then that kind of tells me where I need to position the rest of my electronics. So to look at it underneath again, if the plane is going to be very nose heavy, so the battery is going to be going this, or sorry, if the plane is going to be very tail heavy naturally, and I want to balance it out, that means I'm going to have to add more weight to the front. Well, if the battery has to end up, in this area, I'm going to be putting my speed control nice and far out and straight so that, one, the wire will reach the battery up here, and two, having the controller more forward is going to move that center of gravity even more forward. The receiver, honestly, is so light that it's not going to affect things much, but the ESC in this case, it's got a little bit of mass to it. So if I can move this forward, it's going to make the battery be able to come back just a touch more, and I want the wire to reach anyway. So since this plane actually seems like it's going to have no problem being tail heavy, it looks like it's going to be easy to make it nice and neutral, I can actually mount this a little bit further back because the battery is going to end up further back. So instead of the battery being up here somewhere, it's going to be back here. So I don't need the ESC to be very far forward. Not only that, but I want room for the battery, so I'm going to maybe even mount the ESC sideways and then have the wire coming out like this. Now for mounting the ESC, which I'm going to do next, and I won't actually show it on camera, but I'll show the end result. If I don't intend to keep this plane very long, more likely than not, so I'm just going to tape it in using the strapping tape. But if I was going to keep this plane a while, I would recommend gluing a piece of Velcro here, and then the other part of the Velcro, whether it's the hooks or the loops, I would put on the ESC and then Velcro it down and then tape over that, so it'll be nice and secure, and you're not going to have it bobbling about. Because if this were to come loose, if this ESC were to come loose during flight, these wires have a very good chance of getting caught up in the propeller, and if these get cut up, you lose all your motor power for one, and if they short out, you may end up losing all control altogether because it may kill your speed controller. So the receiver is similar. Actually, this already has a little bit of Velcro on the bottom because I've been mounting it like that. You actually could just get away. This is so light. You can mount it with just tape or with just Velcro. You probably don't need both. You're just gonna want that. You're gonna want to put it as far away from the receiver as you can get away with. But keep in mind, your wires for your servos still have to be able to reach. So what I'm gonna do with these is I'm gonna run them down, and I'm gonna poke a hole and run these inside the fuselage, and then they're gonna have to get to the receiver somehow. So I may have to put little wire extensions on these to get to where I want the receiver to be roughly, because you don't want it right next to the ESC, because that can create interference issues. So I'll have to kind of lay things out in here, and then when you get everything laid out, go after with tape and tape all your wires down in several spots to make sure they don't move or get loose, because again, if anything this gets loose and flies backwards, if it gets chopped up by this propeller, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And remember, this propeller is blowing air this way, so it is sucking air through here. So plus the forward speed of the airplane is forcing air through here, so it's going to tend to push everything back. So again, you want all the wires secured as much as you can. So I'm going to do all that, and then I'll show the end result. Hey, it's Alex from SkyRC. Alright, so I was able to get all my electronics mounted in here. I got my speed controller, and then my receiver's tucked in here, and then the antenna is actually taped up here on the bottom, on the other side of this bottom piece. You want to make sure that isn't moving around either. So everything's nice and taped down. I used the strapping tape and taped all the wires and everything down, so you don't want anything moving. And then I went ahead and did one more balance check with my battery to see roughly where it would need to go, and then I glued the Velcro down. Since mine doesn't have the back sticky side anymore, I had to use hot glue. So I just hot glued it down and then went around the edge here to help kind of seal it in and get a little more surface area of contact, because when you're pulling your battery in and out of the plane, it's going to kind of wear out on here on the foam a bit, so it can pull up off of the foam, especially here, since I actually had to glue over tape a little bit, which I didn't want to do, but I want to make sure this stays in here. And I'll probably I always tape my batteries in anyway, so I'll probably still tape the battery in, even though I have a pretty good amount of Velcro area. So that's pretty much it for that. You can kind of see, I'll show you there's kind of what it looks like from the one side, and then there, and then there. You can kind of see everything. And I went ahead and plugged my other two servos in. They go into channel 1 and 2. That's or the servos. That's what they go, is in channel 1 and 2, at least on my radio. And then the next step from here is going to be either you can go ahead and do all your reinforcements, or you can go and start doing your radio programming. I will probably, I'm not sure which one I'll do yet next. And so one thing I will talk about real quick though is the KF airfoil. I will be doing that. So hopefully you kept your plans. So what you want to do for the KF, I kept my plans and I used them, but you don't have to. You can't just do it off of the plane. The KF is going to be 40% of the chord length of the wing. So what I did is I measured from the wing root all the way down, find that number, then get 40% of that, which you multiply by 0.4. The same thing at the wing tip. Get that length and then do 40%. And then I made a mark on my plans, but you could do it on the plane too. If you want to lay a piece of foam down over here and trace your wing out and do it from that, you can do that. But you're going to make a mark at 40% from the leading edge on both of them. And then wherever that mark is, you just draw a line connecting the two dots. And you want to go on this plane, because it's a profile, you can go all the way to the center with both. And I did that on my plans. So here is what the KF is going to look like. So that's going to go all the way to there, and then to the wingtip here. And so I'm going to put this on a piece of foam and trace it out, and basically be cutting out another piece of foam, and these are going to be my plans for it. I just took these off of the original plans, but again, you can trace out a new wing and just do it off of that if you want to. I've done that before. It works. It just, not quite as, it's a little more work doing it that way, so that's why I like to keep the plans, at least for the wing, for my KFs. And then I'm going to cut that out, and that's just going to glue on top, and then I'll sand the leading edge there to make it nice and smooth. But and that'll be part of the finishing process as well. So, all right, we'll pick it up from here. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done some of my reinforcements and my KF airfoil. Like I said, I traced a new piece of foam out, and I glued this on using the 3M Super 77 spray glue. So I just sprayed a generous layer on the bottom of this. I didn't put any on the plane itself, and then I just put it down. I probably could go in here and hot glue reinforce this, but I don't really know that it's necessary. But I just put it down. I sanded a nice little bevel and rounded the leading edge here on both top and bottom, and then I went over it with tape. And that's pretty much all I had to do there. And then I went ahead and I also sanded and rounded the just the horizontal part of the fuselage from here to here and on the other side. And then I went over that with tape, and then I did tape all the way here and here, and I also did tape on the underside of the front there. And that took care of the front end reinforcements. Now in the back, I went ahead and I did a couple things. I ran a bamboo skewer all the way up here and then taped over it. And the tape itself will add some rigidity. The bamboo skewer does most of the work. Now again, this is the biggest vertical stabilizer I've ever done on an airplane, and it is not as sturdy as some of mine have been. It was still wobbling even after this, and I wasn't confident that just tape here would have helped me out a whole lot, so I did a bamboo skewer. So I did that all the way through, and it actually poked through the bottom up into the bottom of the tail there. I did a little shaving of foam on the back there, but that's taped in also. Now you can also hot glue this in, but I like to use tape because it's a little bit lighter, and it works pretty good in this situation, but you can use hot glue. And then I also put one here for the horizontal stabilizer, because what I end up seeing with this, first of all, I was getting a bit of wobble here, a bit of flex in this part of the stabilizer. So that takes care of that. Now, with this here and this here, the two bamboo skewers, basically what you're getting now is the whole back end is kind of twisting a little bit. Now, I don't know if that's going to be an issue. If it does end up causing me a bit of problem, one thing that I can do is I can run some bamboo or even just tape, but bamboo or some sort of reinforcement here on the top and the bottom of both sides, and that's going to resist a little bit of the torsional tendency. I have heard that some of these prop and slot single stabilizer planes will get a little weird because of that. So because you get some flutter back here. So I'm going to see if that's an issue or not. Again, I don't know that I'll be keeping this plane that long, so I don't know if I'll go back in here and fix this or not. But anywhere you have flex or wobbliness, you need to go in and reinforce that. Tape is the simplest, quickest method to do that. When you need more than that, then bamboo skewer should be your next method. And from there, you can either, if you still have a problem, you can either double up on the bamboo skewer. And when I say that, I don't mean put two next to each other, but sandwich the foam. So if I were still having like a lot of wobble here, I would put another one on the bottom and tape it basically the same way. But I wouldn't necessarily say put two next to each other, because that won't help you out that much. It won't be as efficient as put one on the other side. But anyway, but every project I've ever done has needed some sort of reinforcement, at the very least tape, but a lot of times the bamboo skewers go into. Now once you paint, you're not going to notice this, and if I wanted this to be a little more aesthetically pleasing, I would have put this on the underside for this one. And for this one, what you can do actually is you can do similar to what we do for our spar. I would maybe just take like a screwdriver and just kind of dig a little channel. I mean, if you have to, cut all the way through, but you may not even need to. If you just dig a little channel into the foam by running like a screwdriver or something, nothing sharp, just something with like a nice kind of blunt but rounded edge that's about the size of the bamboo skewer, you can run that through, compress the foam, and this will actually sit in here much flatter. Now if you want the cleanest look, then yes, you would have to cut out like a little sliver, put the bamboo skewer in, tape it flat, or glue it in, or whatever you want to do. So you have a couple options there. And I think that's pretty much all I did as far as reinforcement. What I'm going to do now is, and you can see now I can actually lay this on its tail, and it's not wiggling around as much as it used to. Oh yeah, and I also added a little tape here on the bottom, because these are going to be the first thing to hit when it lands. I honestly don't foresee these lasting very long. One option you could do here is you could run a bamboo skewer from here down, or maybe even at an angle, but probably from here down, to just kind of stiffen this up and give it a little more rigidity, because I think this is just going to rip off over time. Alternatively, you could just run some tape on the inside and outside to kind of strengthen this up a little bit. Another thing you can do also, if you get any wobble here, is you can stick a bamboo skewer between the two, wherever you want, but the further out, the more effective it's going to be. So put a bamboo skewer here and here, glue it in, and that's going to kind of brace this a little bit. So there's, again, different ways you can do it. But the last thing I'm going to do is my hatch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in here. And then I'm going to use my strapping tape and make a little hinge here so that I can flip this open when I want to get to the battery and all that stuff. And then when I actually go to fly, I can Velcro, I can tape, you can use magnets, popsicle sticks, any kind of method you want to just have like a little latch or whatever mechanism to open and close this. But I usually just have a little sacrificial piece of tape that I put down. You're not usually going to have this flop open in flight anyway, so you don't need much. You're just a little tiny strip that you can undo and open it up. But that's the last thing I'm going to do. And then the only thing we have left before actually getting ready for our maiden flight would be to do the radio setup. Now I'm about to actually go fly my one of my planes. I'm all full as far as models on my radio, so the only way I can put a new plane in like this is I have to take an old one out. So since I still fly everything that's still on my radio, and I'm going to be flying today or tomorrow anyway, I'll actually probably wait until I do my flight and then I'll come in there. I already have my settings written down, which is a good idea, especially if you have limited model memory on your radio. But I have my settings for that plane written down. But rather than having to put this in there and take it back out, I'm just going to wait till I'm fly my plane and I'm put this in my radio, and then I'll set it up from zero as if it had nothing in there already, because the radio's already got settings in there for my other plane. So I'm going to zero everything out, and then I'll plug this in and go ahead and try to dial it in. But overall, yeah, it's a pretty standard ParkJet build. It's a little different than what I usually do. And I made a few little errors here and there, and just things I probably would have done differently. But overall, I expect it to at least be a halfway decent performer. So we'll pick up when I start doing the radio setup, and then we'll be getting ready for the maiden flight.